That now, though, in the rearview mirror, the NHL is back in full force for this weekend. They have today off, but tomorrow, 14 games in action starting at 12:30. The Wild taking on the Red Wings in Detroit. The Sabres will get back in action as well at 5:30 when they host the Rangers, and then 10 games will be on Sunday starting at 1. We'll get more on last night's game in the tournament and what's to come for the Sabres when Paul Hamilton joins the show at 4 p.m. Over in the NFL, it was rumored that he would be the favorite, but now reports have it. The Saints are hiring former Chargers head coach Brandon Staley to be the team's defensive coordinator. The Bengals have released defensive tackle Sheldon Rankins. Rankins started 7 games last year, and this will save the Bengals $9.6 million on the cap and more cap moves. Former Bills cornerback Dane Jackson, free agent today after Carolina released him to free up $3.3 million in cap. The Yankees released a statement today. They will be amending their long-standing facial hair policy and will now allow players to have, quote, well-groomed beards. The Yankees also got their spring training schedule underway today as they faced off against Tampa. And then in college hoops, Niagara Purple Eagles are in the state capital to take on Siena. Tip-off at 7. You can listen to that game right here on WGR. It's Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
My dad's not here right now. He's still at work. So I'm going to blast him.
Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
I'm going to see if there's a clean version so that my parents and the people at my school will not get mad at me. We've got the spritzer filled with water just in case if stuff gets too fire. I'm going to set up the speaker and I'm going to listen to
Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
I think this is the best
Mike Schopp
feature that I've heard in a long time. I think his flow is really good in it, and I like his aggressiveness on it, and
the Bulldog.
Put not enough effort in it. I think overall his flow was good, but I don't like that mobile rapping. That was my review of
Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
Didn't need the spritzer. Wasn't fire enough. No spritzer for you. No spritzer.
Want to hear something funny? It was funny to me anyway. I don't know, maybe not like LOL, ha ha, belly laugh funny, but I was when we're here. The TV is a little complicated to deal with sometimes here. I don't have, we have cable here. I don't have cable. I haven't had cable in 20 years or more, 30 maybe. So, I know some channels, I don't know others. And so sometimes it's easier for me to look on my app, on my iPad or on my phone, my streaming app, and see, like, for instance, where's the golf? I think it's probably on 404. I know that channel. That's PG. That's the golf channel. So I look there. But when I got there, it said it was ending at 3. The coverage of the Mexico Open was going to be ending at 3. I thought, that's weird that it's ending at 3. Maybe it's going on to on a Friday afternoon. Maybe it's going on to one of the big networks or something. I don't know if this is an NBC weekend or a CBS weekend for the golf, but so rather than bother with the guide on the TV, which again is kind of it's wonky. I'll look on my app. And so I open up my Fubo app, and the guide page is there. And what catches my eye, not the golf. The golf, it turns out, is just taking a break here. They'll be back at 4 with the golf coverage on the Golf Channel. But while I was bumping around in my Fubo app, I saw what was on NHL Network right now. What do you think is on NHL Network right now? How about the 2023 NHL All-Star Game? I mean, can you imagine being a hockey fanatic and being all juiced up after watching last night, and you like, oh man, I just want more hockey content, right? But I'm a slave to the channels that I get. NHL Network, by the way, is not a channel that I think is widely distributed, but whatever. It's on my Fubo app. I don't even know if we have it here at work. I think we do, but I'm not even sure. I don't know what number it is, so I'm not going to go looking. Anyway, the 2023 NHL All-Star Game. Oh my God! Like, what? Who? Could there be 1,000 people watching that across the planet that get NHL Network? Could there be 1,000 people watching that? That's probably too many. Could there be
too many.
100 people watching that? I just can't even imagine.
That channel never misses. Never plays live stuff when it's a big day.
Crap!
Oh,
The 2023 NHL All-Star Game. Thanks. I can't wait to sink my teeth into that. Wow. Hey, but look, that's it's a little bit of what we're left with here. Last night was, I think, incredible. No, it didn't meet my criteria for the greatest game I've ever seen. I didn't get my 5-4, but I got a lot of drama. I got a lot of star power. I got huge saves. I got a lot of physicality. I mean, I got the stuff last night from these NHL players between Team Canada and Team USA playing for a trophy that, a couple of weeks ago no one had ever really seen nor heard of. But it was off the charts excellent. I think it met and, again, exceeded maybe even the hype. No, there weren't any fights, but, whatever. I thought it was a tremendous, tremendous show and really enjoyed it. Want to be here and have the door open as much as I can today with, we got a few guests, which I'll get to in a minute for you, but you want to react to the game, your experience watching it, your feelings watching it. I'm here for that at 803-0550. Kind of like yesterday, I'm to an extent, I'm at your mercy. As much as you want to talk about it is as much as I'll talk about it. I mean, I got plenty to say myself, but you can help out, of course. So 803-0550 is the phone number. Again, if you want to get in and get us rolling on your experience watching that game last night. I said a few times yesterday and even during the entirety of the tournament, which was, a little more than a week long, that I felt like I'm not really that invested in who wins. All I really want is the show, right? Just give me the good game, and if I get the good game, I won't be hung up on who wins. And that was a load of crap. Because, the game started, and I think, if I remember correctly, Canada kind of had some early pressure. The game started, and I thought, I'm nervous. Suddenly, I'm get it out of it. Like my kid's in goal. Get it over the blue line. What are you doing? Because that's how I used to yell at 14-year-old kids when my kid was a goalie. I would be in the stands screaming at Owen's defenseman. No, I'm kidding. I never did that. I thought it a lot. I sat by myself so that nobody ever heard me. And also I didn't have to hear them going, man, Parker, that goal was garbage. Right? So anyway, but immediately the game starts and I'm at this sort of place that I did not expect to be, where I'm not a face painter. I'm not one who's going to be waving the flag. But it felt almost immediately like, okay, I think I should have really reconsidered saying that as many times as I did on the air, because I'm here now and the game is on, and I badly want the USA to take Canada down in this thing. And so, it was fantastic. And when it ended in overtime like it did, somewhat reminiscent of 15 years ago. It's not 87 this time. It's 97. It's not our goalie, the Sabres goalie, Ryan Miller. It's Connor Hellebuck, and it's Connor McDavid alone in front. And thanks for coming. He doesn't miss. And so he nailed it. And Canada wins, and we are left here like, someday. It's maybe a little Bills-Chiefsy, although there's large gaps of time in between these losses. It's not like, every year like we're getting with the Bills and the Chiefs in the playoffs. But this is not the first time that these two nations in a best-on-best meeting, whether it's in an Olympic Games or a thing like this, that the U.S. wins the preliminary game, i.e. the regular season game, like the Bills have done to the Chiefs, and then it's time for the trophy or the gold medal, and here's Canada reclaiming their glory. So it stung. I'm far from depressed about it, but I just wanted to admit that the juices got flowing. Owen sitting next to me wearing his Ryan Miller Olympic jersey that he got when he was like, I don't even know, 12 or 13 years old, maybe played some part in that for me, but I immediately felt compelled to be really nervous and rooting for the U.S. once the game got rolling. So anything I said about not caring about the outcome, just wanted to see a good game, turned out to be utter horse crap. So there's that. I'll just, let you know that. The game itself, holy cow, some individual players in this game were just so impressive. Jordan Binnington has been one of my least favorite goaltenders in the sport since he showed up. It was at 19 when the Blues won the Stanley Cup. And I didn't know much about him then. I thought it was a cool story. Like he'd been kind of, waived. I think he played that year, if I remember the story right. I'm not going to Google this, but I think this is right. That year when he showed up in St. Louis, he had earlier that season been loaned from the Blues didn't even have a minor league spot for him. So he went and played, I think, in the Bruins organization. No, it couldn't have been the Bruins. That's who they beat for the Cup. He played somewhere else. Maybe it was the Bruins. I don't remember. I feel like that would be more prominently remembered if it were the Bruins. But I'm pretty sure he was loaned to another organization because the Blues didn't even have a locker for him in their minor leagues. They didn't have room for him. That's how buried he was. And then he shows up and took the league by storm, and they win the Cup, and he's kind of a legend. And since then, the thing I'd say he's mostly known for, which is why he's one of my least favorite goalies in the sport, is I never liked it when I saw my kid crack. Any kind of temper, any kind of pushing and shoving with guys in the crowd. I used to tell him, like, dude, even when he was 13, like, you can't be jabbing at guys who jab at you because as soon as you do that, all your guys are going to take penalties. It's like it's ingrained in them. If they see you like push your waffle blocker glove into some kid's face, they're going to come and they're probably going to take penalties. So just like cool it. If there's traffic in the crease, get out of there. Just go skate away. Skate to the corner and let everybody else deal with it. All right? And Binnington is a maniac in this way. Like he is, I mean, if you follow the sport closely or followed him at all, you know this. Like, he is known for losing it. He's one of the most ill-tempered goalies I've ever seen. And so that has always kind of bothered me about him. Man, was he money last night. Those saves in overtime, the save on Matthews, and then I think that preceded the opportunity Tkachuk had at the side of the net. Look, that was going in. That was incredible. The save on Matthews was great. The save on Tkachuk was scrambling, otherworldly stuff. Just amazing. So, the legend of Binnington, Binner the winner, is he kept saying it last night on the telecast. It was on stage last night. So credit to him, man. He did a tremendous job for them. On the American side, so funny that it ended the way it ended, with Matthews sort of leaving McDavid alone in the slot in coverage there. He got sucked into chasing Marner. He had a teammate closer to Marner. Marner was alone, but there was a teammate between Matthews and Marner, and that teammate was heading for Marner, and Matthews went anyways and left McDavid alone in the slot, and Marner fed him the pass, and it was a pretty easy play as it turned out because of Matthews. For almost the entire game up to that point, I felt like Matthews was one of the stories of the tournament for me. Like, what have I known about Austin Matthews? Obviously, he's an elite offensive talent, great shot, 69 goals. I mean, he's a monster talent in the league. I thought his all-around game, his 200-foot game in this tournament, and even last night, right up until the very end, was a revelation. And that's not to say it was a revelation for me. Maybe everybody already knew this, all right, that he has become this very well-rounded player. Or maybe it was just because he was in this tournament and everybody's got to do a little more than they usually do and that kind of stuff, right? Different roles for different guys. I just thought in his own end, he showed out. He just looked really impressive to me. I could say the same thing about Eichel in this tournament. It was very notable to me that early in this game last night, I thought Matthews and Eichel were they were dominating the game, but think about it. Did you really feel like most of the game you saw McDavid flashing? I felt like they blanketed him. And I think Eichel should get a lot of credit for that. I think it was either him or Matthews. Eichel, I think specifically, for a while, they were even changing their lines up, but things got really messed up. They had injuries, and they, for some reason, dressed Chris Kreider, who sounded like a good idea, to one caller yesterday with me, and he played a whopping 6 minutes. Like, they seemed terrified to put him or Vinny Trocheck on the ice. So, I want to revisit the team build and all that stuff, but I thought Eichel and Matthews were tremendous for Team USA. Lots of people complimenting Jacob Slavin. What a player. The shot he blocked in the slot was the way he went about that. Did you notice? This is what you get when hockey is at this level and you are this jacked up about the game. Did you notice he went down and, like, you will see a goalie from time to time, if he's sprawled, like, oh, I'm vulnerable, he's going to lift it over me and lift his leg. Slavin lifted his legs to block that shot. Like, he went down and slid, but his legs ended up off the ice and the puck hit his top leg. Like, that was incredible to me, that he had the instinct to do that. Maybe it was just physics. I don't know, but that was tremendous. What a player that dude is. He is just the definition of shutdown.
He's the kind of guy that you talk about when it's like, we need a defenseman's defenseman award.
Yeah.
He's the guy you think of.
Yeah,
That's the play you think of.
He was really impressive. So, a couple of guys that stand out. Feel free to contribute with your thoughts on any of this, but very, bitter outcome for Team USA and fans who were maybe more invested in the outcome all through the tournament than I was, because, like I said, I was sort of like a hippie about it. Like, I just want to see a cool game, man. But the game starts, I'm like, just kill somebody. Like, I was really wound up as the game was unfolding, and it was a real bummer when you saw McDavid alone in the slot there, and he buried it like he did. So, awesome ramp up for the Olympics next year, and just a tremendous success for the NHL and its players. And now, we'll see what, if anything, they can do with it, because there's an impossible, I'm making jokes about the NHL Network showing an All-Star game from 2 years ago. It's an impossible bar to reach. Obviously, the talent, the skill, the desire, the passion, all that's in evidence in a tournament like that is not going to be duplicated in the regular season. We get to the playoffs, like, you'll have the passion and the fire and the desire, like, that'll all be there, but what you won't have is that much talent on the ice at the same time. It's just obviously these are all-star teams. These are national teams and best on best. So hockey may have a tough time with fans who go looking for that kind of game and, are just going to see whatever's on ABC tomorrow afternoon or Sunday afternoon, and I think Sunday's TNT and HBO. But anyway, whatever. You get the point. It was great. And people who love hockey really embraced it. I think in this country we didn't get the result we wanted, obviously, and it's a bummer. But I still think, and both of the coaches spoke this way throughout the tournament, that really, and I really feel this way. And I remember one call I got yesterday about this, that, like, I don't really need hockey to get way more popular, because sports getting more popular, it brings more people in, which really ultimately ends up driving the price up. And, like, I don't know, that I'm not that interested. I gave a whole speech yesterday. Like, I'm not a stakeholder. I do work at a stakeholder, I guess. We carry hockey games, so it is part of our business here at WGR. So I shouldn't be so quick to say I'm not, but, I don't get any residuals from that deal. But, I'm employed here. I have a job here. So I am, to some extent, someone who, quote unquote, benefits from the sport, being on the station and being in the area and people caring about it. But ultimately, like, lifting the league to prominence, television wise and water cooler wise and all that, only does so much for me. It's not really what I think about. What I think more about is what an exhibition like that does for kids who are either already playing the sport or want to take up the sport, because kids especially at it can happen at any age, I suppose, but the younger the better. They see their parents really care about something that can really trip a wire. And I love that about this tournament. Whether we all can talk about it for 4 hours today and be really fired up about it, and they get better TV deals and that kind of stuff, relatively immaterial to me as a sports fan and even as a talk show host. But if it lights fires for kids at the grassroots level of the sport and pushes kids to want to chase that dream, like, I'm all for it. I mean, most of them won't make it, but it's still a ride worth taking. To whatever extent you want to do it. Just go play house league hockey. That's awesome. And I love that aspect of this, that it was so prominent. I feel like there's almost no question that these games reached sports fans who generally are not watching hockey games. And the spillover from that, I think, could be really cool. Whether those people all come back and watch regular season games or playoff games or whatever, again, I'm not that invested in that personally, but I don't really have anything to gain from kids taking the ride with their parents or parents taking their kids on the ride either. I just know that I got to do it with our oldest kid, and it was awesome. So the more the merrier, as far as I'm concerned on that front. If people come under the umbrella, under the big top, I guess, as who says? Nobody says. Old people say that. 803-0550 is the number. Would love to hear from lots of you, your experience last night watching the game. We'll try to kind of spin it forward as we go, looking at what to do with the hometown hockey team as we go, because I feel like that's going to be on the minds of a lot of people. The Sabres get back on the ice for game action tomorrow at 5:30 when they host the New York Rangers. Again, 803-0550 is the number. Don will lead us off this segment. Hi, Don. Thank you for calling. You're on the air here on WGR.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
You're
Appreciate it. Couple of things. If you haven't been to a Bandits game, you must go. It's an amazing experience. And the team is really, really good. Number two, would you trade Darlene for McDavid?
Come on! What do you mean?
Would you do that?
Who wouldn't do that? You know who wouldn't do that? Edmonton. Yeah, man, like 100 times over.
Okay, and my other question is, when we had that 13-game losing streak,
yeah,
okay, why is Kevin Adams still here?
Because the owner doesn't want to pay him to not work here, I think, would be my guess, Don. I think it's a problem within the organization. They have fired numerous people and have paid numerous people not to do the jobs they were being paid to do, because that's the way the contracts work, and I think that is absolutely the answer to that. I think it's money. I think almost everything about the Sabres revolves around money, which is infuriating to some extent, because the football team is printing money, and the same people own the football team that own the hockey team. But my guess for a while has been that ownership is trying to balance the budget as best they can. And that's why they don't spend to the cap. That's why they didn't spend Jeff Skinner's buyout money. And to me, it's why they don't fire coaches in season when it's called for. And they don't fire general managers in season or even out of season when it's called for. And furthermore, I'm pretty sure that the reason Jason Botterill got fired in the first place and Kevin Adams got the job is because Jason Botterill refused to fire people in the face of the pandemic, early on in the pandemic. And so Adams has like a loyalty chip here with Pegula, because he did the dirty work. He took the job and they gutted the staff, not just hockey operations, but the entire the arena. Like they just fired a lot of people, I'd say rather callously, in the face of a pandemic. And that's a horrible walking off point, but I think I suspect, I don't know that, but I have been whispered that numerous times by numerous people who would know, but I've never been able to get it like completely locked down. But that's mostly been my answer to that. I think it's money. It's money, plainly money. What the other stuff about Bottrell, again, I'd like to be a little more vague about it than maybe I just sounded, but mostly money. That's why Kevin Adams has a job, money. Why didn't the Sabres move on down Granato during last season when Kyle Oposo later on told you in October or November they knew they didn't have it? Money. Money, money, money. Thank you for the call, and that will help propel us, because the next question out of my mouth is, what do we do with the Sabres? How, like, you got ideas? I know the morning guys were talking about this. I chimed in, not on the air, but I tweeted about it. And we'll lay that out as we get rolling here. So you have a thought on that too? I think we can tackle two questions at once. Reactions to last night's hockey game, which was incredible. Love to hear those. And what do we do now, Sabres? is I think worth talking about. 803-0550 is the number. The guest list is as follows: Paul Hamilton at 4 p.m. today, on last night and the way forward for the Sabres. Marty Biron, working a lot today. He, of course, had his own show with Brian Duff between noon and 1 here on WGR. He's making the rounds media-wise today and found some time for us at 4:35. So we'll visit with Marty Biron on all of this, both of these topics at 4:35, and then at 5 we'll squeeze in our requisite NFL conversation about the draft and the offseason with Mike Renner from CBS Sports. He's one of their NFL analysts and draft analysts, so we will talk with him at 5. That's the lay of the land. Lines are open now. 803-0550 again is the number. Mike has been away this week along with Zach Jones. I am the Bulldog, and you are listening to WGR.
Never miss
in getting your part done.
Sabres head coach Lindy Ruff talking a bit there about the way forward for his team. They've been back at practice. In fact, we're on the ice again today after a day not exactly off yesterday, but it wasn't a practice media attended yesterday. But anyway, they get back on the ice for a game tomorrow at 5:30 downtown at KeyBank Center. Against the New York Rangers. I am the Bulldog. Glad to have you with us here on this Friday. 803-0550 is the number. Mike Schopp, by the way, has been on vacation this week, so you got just me here today, leading us into the weekend. Talking a lot about, really all week long, the conversation about the Four Nations Faceoff. The final game last night was tremendous. I've not seen TV ratings yet. I know that in the U.S., the game on Saturday night between Canada and the United States had 4.4 million viewers, which was the number that I saw reported. I've not seen it yet. It's possible it's out there and it just hasn't crossed my face yet, but I'll be curious to see what that ends up looking like. Great game, tremendous platform for the sport, a lot more people drawn in. And while that's not the most important thing to me, it certainly is not something I'm opposed to. Really enjoyed it. And I think a lot of people got an eyeful of it. Where they all go from here and where hockey goes from here and where we go from here with the Sabres is something that's more and more starting to be on my mind. Really, as this tournament captured so much of our attention, there was, to me, I've mentioned this a few times. I haven't wanted to really dwell on it, but now that it's over and the Sabres are officially back tomorrow afternoon or early evening, however you want to view 5:30 p.m. What a weird start time. Anyway, now that we're back, the whole time I sort of felt like we're going to be bitter to an extent, or maybe bitter's not the right word, but it's enjoying the sport played at that level again is going to remind, I think, a lot of us who are Sabres fans how distant that feels. I mean, again, any team in the league it can't meet the level of play that we watched in this tournament between any of these four nations, but especially Canada and the U.S. It's impossible to do. But to have your passion sort of reignited a bit by this tournament and then have to turn your attention to the Sabres it can be a little, I don't know, depressing might be too strong, but it doesn't feel great because I don't really know what to do next if I'm the Sabres. We get the calls here in 1 second. I saw Jeremy and Joe talking about this morning. It was one of those video cut-ups because we're on YouTube and on the Twitch there. And so I saw them talking for just a couple of minutes about the Sabres and like what to do next. And my thought was, what I said on Twitter was, I have thought about this maybe more than is healthy. And I really don't, I don't have what I think is a great idea. I really don't know what to do next. We've tried a lot of stuff. We've tried different managers. We've tried different coaches. We've tried sinking to the bottom and drafting early. We've tried making trades, and like nothing seems to work. The last card I have to throw down on the table is they get struck by lightning by some incredible goalie season. Luukkonen or Levi, like one of those dudes shows up one of these years and just plays like at a .925 save percentage, 2.5 goals against, and is like a Vezina candidate. I don't know what else to do. I think that's it. And at least that's the best I can do right now. And that is like Rudy, I think, for a lightning strike at this point. Just say, well, I just sure hope it happens. Man, it's a tough spot we're in. Anyway, so two things going here. Four Nations, your reaction to that, and you got an idea for what to do for the Sabres? First response I got to this on Twitter was fold the franchise, disperse the assets, and come back as an expansion team. If you want a window into like how some of the audience is feeling about the fortunes of the hometown hockey team right now. Ryan will lead us off here this segment. Hi, Ryan. Thank you for calling. You're on the air here on WGR.
Bulldog, my man. Great show, bro. First of all, I want to say, this is my opinion. This is how I felt last night watching the game, U.S. versus Canada. I felt like I was more into that game more than I was into the game versus Stanley Cup Game 7, Edmonton versus Florida last season. I think I was more into it because, you know what, it's a national game versus, you know, there's a lot of league fans who they don't want Edmonton to win, yada, yada, yada. But I think there's a lot. I'm speaking for myself, but I'm pretty sure most Canadians was into it more than I was. And you brought up the topic of ratings. I want you people to if we get a chance, look at the ratings about last night's game versus Game 7 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. I bet you the rating for last night's game was much higher than the Game 7 Edmonton versus Florida.
I think you're going to be right about that, Ryan. During the break, thank you for the call. Appreciate it. Nice to hear from you. I did look this up, and I don't have last night's numbers yet. I haven't seen them yet. I don't have like Gary Bettman sends me an email with the numbers. The way I mean, I don't have them yet. Like but a courier will be rolling them in here at any time now. Anyway, I haven't seen the numbers yet for last night, but I mentioned last segment Saturday night's Team Canada-USA round-robin game had 4.4 million viewers in the United States. All right, Canada, I've got some combined ratings, too, from last season's Stanley Cup Final. But anyway, so I'll speak for the United States anyway. 4.2 million viewers for Game 7 last year between Florida and Edmonton. Now, so you're already ahead of things from Saturday's round-robin game. Now, that was a Saturday night versus a Thursday night, so I don't know how much that could swing it, but I'd be stunned if more people didn't watch last night after Saturday in the United States. Now, let me slow down. Saturday was on ABC. Last night was on ESPN. That can have an impact. Anyway, I would bet you're going to be right. I think more people in the United States anyway, and maybe in Canada too. 16.3 was the total number, including Canada and the U.S. So if you subtract the 4.2, you're talking about 14 or 12.1 million Canadians watched Game 7 last year. I guess North America includes Mexico too. Anyway, I would be surprised if last night's game doesn't exceed 4.2 or even Saturday night's 4.4, despite the ABC ESPN change. So I think you're right. I think last night did draw more people in. And look, the flags are there. It's just there's just more people that are going to get drawn into that than they are to see McDavid play Matthew Tkachuk in the Florida Panthers. In Game 7 in June, by the way. You know, like, that's a tough time of the year, I think, for hockey anyway, even though it's the most important time of the year. But I'd be surprised if when we see the ratings that last night's game doesn't exceed what Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final was last year. Again, 4.2 was that number. Million viewers in the U.S. watched that game last year. 803-0550 is the number. Paul is up next. Hi, Paul. Thanks for calling. You're on WGR.
Oh, Bulldog, amazing game last night. You know, I did get sucked in by Kreider in the playoffs last year. He, you know, as you said, didn't get much ice time, but he wasn't impressive in his ice time. But I will say I didn't expect Kyle Connor to be the guy scratched.
Me either. Yeah, you mentioned Nelson, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
I was. I mean, Connor's like the sixth leading scorer in the league. I mean, I know he wasn't producing in this tournament, but that was a weird move, I think.
It was an interesting one, but today's no day to throw slings and arrows at Team USA. They were brilliant. Jordan Binnington, though, just proved he is a big game player, and that was part of the difference. I will say one of the things that was gut-wrenching was the final goal. How many goals against the Sabres are scored like that, where a forward just, for whatever reason, forgets his responsibility right in the slot, and there's a clean slot in the shot, and everybody's like, oh, Dahlin sucks. Look at that. Blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's the second Colorado game. Dahlin goes in on McKinnon in the corner, and I think it was Rantanen just wide open in the slot, gets a pass. That's exactly what happened to the Sabres probably every third game and multiple times a game. I mean, our defensemen are a lot better than they're given credit for because our forwards, while offensively really brilliant, still at basic defense, they have these brain farts constantly. And then a player I was super impressed with in this tournament that I guess it's my fault I didn't follow him enough, but Colton Parenko, I had no idea he had the offensive upside. He had showed some blazing speed at moments. He acquitted himself quite well in a fight. And he just sound all over the place. Great player. And I would say I was a little disappointed in Jack Hughes. You see his speed and skill, but I think his youth, and he's just not physically strong enough yet. He got abused physically a bunch in this series. And though he, next year in the Olympics, you hope he's got a few more pounds of muscle because he is the future of U.S. hockey, but he's still very green and young. Bulldog, have a great show.
All right, Paul, appreciate it very much. Parayko is mostly, look, he flashed carrying the puck, but I saw some criticism on Twitter, like, thanks for these rushes that lead to nothing. Like, it wasn't exactly productive. So I don't know that I really need him barreling up the ice with the puck because it just mostly ended in the U.S. ending up with the puck again. He has had a big shot his whole career. He's a big guy, and he leans into it. So he's had a big shot. So that wasn't much of a revelation for me anyway. I mean, I appreciate you pointing him out, and I agree completely on Hughes. Just a real almost no-show. And, in tournaments like this, you have a very short time to adapt to playing on the wing as opposed to playing in the middle. And so comfort level-wise, maybe he just never really found his groove. But I'm with you. He was, I would say, disappointing. Among the very best players the country has to offer, and did not really give you much of anything at all. So, yeah, I mean, that's that. The coverage in front of the net, Matthews, it happens so fast. It's just so fast. So I that's not to give anybody an excuse on the Sabres in their games or last night. It's not inexplicable to me that he would get pulled in and pulled away. I think it takes a lot of discipline to not watch the puck and pursue the puck, and that's what happened to Matthews, and he got burned. It happens, and it happened in a tough spot. Even tougher for him that he's the U.S.'s best guy, right? Or one of them, certainly. He's in front all alone with Binnington, a little too close in sometimes being that close is your worst enemy because you can't really get it over the goalie from there. Like the way the geometry works, it can be hard to elevate it enough and not end up just having to go over the net when you're that in close. The angles can be tough that way, and they're very deceiving when you're watching just on TV. Whereas McDavid is much higher in the slot, and the opportunity to pick a corner is more available to him there. And how quickly that play happened, too. I mean, Hellebuck is watching the play in the corner. He's on his post. And you can tell I'm turning my head as I'm for some reason, I'm moving the way I think Hellebuck would have been moving on the play because that's important. Anyway, he's on the post, and then it's out there, and it's hard to get out far enough to take away all the angles and all the corners when a guy is that high in the slot and open like McDavid was. So, and he made no mistake. But Matthews had the chance to end the game and couldn't beat the goalie. McDavid gets a similar chance and makes no mistake. Again, the one was in tighter, the other one was out, and I think that gave McDavid an advantage. But still, it's stark to me that your best guy, or certainly one of your best guys, has the puck on his stick, opportunity to win the game, and gets thwarted, and a few minutes later, he's at the scene of the crime, makes the mistake that leaves the best player in the world all alone in the slot, and that dude does not make any mistake and buries it, and you lose. So, tough one for Austin Matthews there. Thanks for the call so far. More on the way at 803-0550. Paul Hamilton at the top of the hour. Marty Biron at 4:35. All on this Four Nations Faceoff, and some Sabres mixed in as we go as well. Again, Mike is away this week. I am the Bulldog, and you're listening to WGR.
This out.
Little Blue Oyster Cult for you here on the mighty WGR 550. Go, go, Godzilla. Hey, everybody, it's me. I'm Bulldog. Sorry, I don't know what was going on there. Mike's been off this week. Fun to be with you all week long, riding the wave of excitement. This Four Nations Faceoff has brought so many of us hockey lovers. 803-0550 is the number. Let's get to Carmine before we hit the top of the hour and Paul shows up and wrecks everything. Carmine, what's going on? You're on WGR.
Hey, Bulldog. Great show. And
That's
that
early.
was a fantastic. That was a fantastic tournament. And for Buffalo Sabres fans, what do we do after the tournament? And the answer is nothing, because we literally have nothing else to look forward to, sadly. And I think when it comes to a couple players on our team, when I look at like Tate Thompson or Rasmus Dahlin, we're getting into some scary territory of how long are we going to keep running things the same way, and them wanting out just due to the fact that they may not think they can even win here.
Yeah.
Because Rasmus Dahlin had not the kind of role that probably he was expecting, and others, and even Tate Thompson for that matter too. And honestly, I think Sweden underutilized Dahlin, but I mean, these teams look at how the guys are doing throughout the season, so.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. Yeah, I think it's I don't like to make a leap and be presumptuous about what these guys might be feeling about being disenchanted with their current situation as Buffalo Sabres, but I absolutely accept and understand the concern, the fear. I mean, you want an example? I knew I was going to be asked about the ratings. So I'm looking at last year's Stanley Cup Finals, and I go to the Wikipedia page for the 2024 Stanley Cup Finals, and I'm scrolling through looking because I want to like refresh my memory, like how did Game 7 go? And there's a nice paragraph telling you about the game here. It's not the Athletic or ESPN, but like whatever, it's Wikipedia. And Sam Reinhart scores the go-ahead goal. Some point, give them a 2-1 lead, and they hang on to that. And next to that paragraph about Game 7 and Reinhart scoring that goal is a picture of Sam Reinhart. And the caption says, Sam Reinhart, pictured here with the Buffalo Sabres, scored the cup-winning goal in Game 7. So I got Reinhart in a Sabre uniform he scored the game-winning goal to win Florida the Stanley Cup last year, right? Thanks, Wikipedia. Like, did I really need that? Like, I'm just trying to live my life over here, innocently look up what happened in Game 7. You got to smash me in the... If I go to the 2023 Stanley Cup Final, I'm going to see a picture of Jack Eichel with Tim Murray and Terry Pagula holding hands from draft night. Can you get a picture of Reinhart wearing a Florida jersey, for God's sake? I didn't need to see that. Yeah, man. Like, we live it's a tough place to be. I don't know what the future holds for any of those guys, but I think the point is at least possibly correct that their status in their national team's eyes is affected by the fact that they are on this loser franchise that has not made the playoffs going on 14 years in a row. And that if they were on the Ottawa Senators or the Detroit Red Wings, who we're in playoff spots as the league resumes, that maybe that would lift their status. And Dahlin makes the team easily, but yeah, he didn't play on special teams. He did not play in overtime, and you can question the Swedish coaches for that and whatever, but. It's a lonely place. It can be a very lonely place. Thank you for the call. Appreciate it, Carmine. 803-0550 is the number. I just said that even though we're about to talk to Paul. Paul Hamilton coming straight ahead at you here with reaction to last night's game and the Sabres as they ramp up to start the tail end of their season here on WGR.
Four Nations goes to Canada following an overtime winner from Connor McDavid, and now the next big international play will come in 2026 for the Winter Olympics in Milan. With that, though, in the rearview mirror, the NHL is back in full force starting this weekend. 14 games are in action on Saturday starting at 12:30. Sabres will host the Rangers at 5:30. Before that, though, former Sabres prospect, Matthew Savoy will make his debut with Edmonton against Philly at 1. And we'll get more on last night's game and what's to come for the Sabres when Paul Hamilton joins the show next. Over in the NFL, he was rumored to be the favorite, but now reports have it that the Saints will be hiring former Chargers head coach Brandon Staley to be the team's defensive coordinator, and some cap-saving moves have been made around the league. The Bengals releasing defensive tackle Sheldon Rankins, as that will save them $9.6 million on the cap, and former Bills cornerback Dane Jackson, now a free agent after Carolina released him to free up $3.3 million on the cap. The Yankees released a statement today. They will be amending their long-standing facial hair policy and will now allow players to have, quote, well-groomed beards. The Yankees also got their spring training schedule underway today. They faced off against Tampa. And then in college hoops, Niagara Purple Eagles there in the state's capital to take on Siena. Tip-off at 7. You can listen to that game right here on WGR. It's Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
It's Paul Hamilton.
Oh, Ceronic and Hamilton go at each other, and Sawinski fights into it.
We have the fight.
With Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
Snodcheck was just totaled by an Iowa State player against the board.
I think it was by Hamilton.
On WGR.
Really a pretty unnecessary hit by Hamilton. Hamilton is still awfully mad. He's being held back.
Number 17, Paul Hill, 2 minutes for charging.
Always happy to welcome Paul Hamilton into the show, but especially today on the heels of just a tremendous week and a half worth of hockey, especially between Canada and the USA. 2 meetings here within the week, and last night's championship game of the Four Nations Faceoff was just a joy to watch for hockey fans everywhere. P. Ham, I take it you echo that sentiment?
Yeah, it was great, and you know, I kind of warned everybody. You just knew Jordan Binghamton. He has that game in him. Not a lot, but he has that game in him. And you look back, I had kind of forgotten this until after he pulled it off again. I mean, he's been in 2 Game 7s when they won the Stanley Cup and was just unconscious in both of them. One of them was in Boston. And you know, he hadn't played real well in the tournament. He'd been okay, but every game, a goal or two that you'd want back, and it's just that. But you just knew that was there sometimes. And if he could pull it, if he could bring it to the forefront, Canada was going to be awfully tough, and he did it. I mean, he absolutely stole them the hockey game.
Yeah, especially in overtime, Paul. I mean, wow. It was reminiscent of the game, the first game of this tournament, I think I mentioned. I thought he looked kind of shaky in that game against Sweden, but then in OT, he was outstanding. And, boy, last night, I mean, the save on Matthews, the save on Tkachuk at the side of the net. I mean, holy Moses. So, yeah, I mean, I can't wait to line up and kick him in the rear end most of the time. A lot of it has to do with his behavior on the ice. I just think he's kind of a loose cannon, and I hate that in a goalie. But man, yeah, he was nails.
Yeah, in all 3 games, I thought in the preliminary, I thought he let in a bad goal, or he was okay. You know, it wasn't like he was god awful, but he wasn't good either. And you know, I think Hellebuck definitely had outplayed him. You know, he had played 2 and Binghamton had played 3, but give the coaching staff credit for Canada. They were not swayed. They didn't go with anybody else. They were the only team in the tournament that had a Stanley Cup winner in goal, and they had 2 of them. Hill also has won the Stanley Cup. And, you know, and you said the save on Matthews. Don't stop there. How about the 3 saves on Matthews?
Right.
I mean,
right.
Matthews is a 60-goal scorer. He would have been capable of scoring on any of those when you give him that type of opportunity. And I'm not trying to be a jerk here. I'm really not. It's probably going to sound like it. Matthews, for 3 periods, I thought probably was their best player. I thought the 2 assists, he got to break up a 2-on-1 that on Gensel that looked like was going to be a great scoring chance, and he got back and broke it up. Just a hustle play. But then, when you needed him the most, he has 3 or 4 glorious chances in overtime. As a superstar player, doesn't capitalize on all of them, and then the last goal is mind-boggling. I don't get it at all. What are you doing? I mean, Fox is in good position with Marner in the corner. If Matthews just stays with McDavid, Marner doesn't have a play, but he just decides he's going to roam towards Marner into the corner. First of all, Marner's not going to score from there. Second of all, Fox is with him. What are you doing? This is Connor McDavid that you're leaving. And we're quite, we see the Sabres. They have problems covering guys in the middle, too, sometimes, quite a bit, actually. And it just boggles my mind. And maybe if you watch that whole overtime again, you can understand why the Toronto Maple Leafs don't make any noise in the playoffs when their best player performs like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen any comments from him explaining what he was thinking there. I can only guess, Paul, that he maybe didn't see Fox and realize that Fox was closer to Marner because he was sort of maybe in his peripheral vision and maybe just didn't notice him and just thought I better try to not give this guy a lot of time. But yeah, I mean, obviously leaving the best player in the world all alone in the slot is it's a pretty tough place to be.
But Bulldog, even if Fox isn't there, Marner's in the corner. Don't leave the best player in the NHL when you're with him in front of the net. Let Marner be in the corner. If, as I said, see if somebody else can get there, but don't leave McDavid. And for that, so I wouldn't go there even if Fox wasn't there, just because Marner's not scoring from the corner. Make sure he doesn't have a pass to the best player in hockey.
Paul Hamilton on the West Her Hotline here with me on WGR, pouring over last night's Four Nations finale between Canada and the U.S. It is really stark, Paul. I mean, we're talking about Matthews and McDavid here. Like, to have your best guy or one of your very best guys, Matthews, with the opportunity he had, the opportunities, like you're correct to say, plural, that he had, and there's McDavid, who, correct me if you disagree here, I felt like the U.S. did a very good job on McDavid throughout the balance of this game. I don't feel like I saw him flashing a lot in this game, and I would credit their game plan and defensive, maybe Matthews and Eichel both doing a very good job on him. But boy, he gets one opportunity there, and bingo, bango, bongo, it's in the net.
He said it himself in the interview after the game, right after the game, when he was talking to Emma Kaplan, that he goes, I struggled all night. He goes, I struggled all night. He goes, that basically was the only time that he got loose. And when he picked up the Player of the Game trophy, he looked like he was almost embarrassed because I think he knew he wasn't the Player of the Game. I mean, they don't win if Jordan Binghamton doesn't steal that hockey game for him. I know that that's the overtime goal to win the tournament, but that's the only thing that McDavid did the whole night. And Binghamton was just out of his mind. So that, to me, he's got to take home the trophy for Player of the Game. Not necessarily the MVP of the tournament. That I don't disagree with. I think, actually, you could have gone with McDavid as MVP, or you could go with who they did, McKinnon. I thought that was a good pick. You could have gone with either one with that. But for that particular game, it's got to be Binghamton.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you on that. But, McDavid, he got the goal. It's his league, right? He's the face of the league. And so, I guess I can accept them doing it. It's a little like a quarterback winning the MVP in the Super Bowl when a running back had the better game, right?
Like the Eagles, like when one of their defensive linemen should have actually absolutely been the MVP.
And... Right. On Matthews, just a little bit more here because I felt like of all the players, just watching this game with Owen, and what a hockey fanatic he is and how well he knows the game, I'm watching with him, and I thought this watching last night, that Matthews, among all the players in this tournament, particularly on Team USA, I felt like I saw more variation in his game. To me, and I've watched him hundreds of times already in the NHL, I know he's got the shot, and he's a prolific offensive player. I thought all around the ice, he was awesome. Again, I know he blew it at the end here, but I was impressed. Him carrying the puck through the neutral zone, I felt like his skating is not a part of his game that I really often focus on. I'm really focused on him in the offensive end, finding his spaces and changing shot angles and just how deft he is with his hands and how fantastic that shot is. I thought his overall game was really tremendous in this tournament. I know it ended badly, but I was really impressed.
Before overtime, I thought he was by far Team USA's best player in that game. And I think what impressed me more than his 2 assists was breaking up that 2-on-1 by Gensel.
Right.
Because he did hightail it back. If he starts coasting like Laine did in the last game Finland played and allowed a goal because he's not skating hard and was coasting, he doesn't get back to break that up. He just hustled back as hard as he could to do that, and I totally agree that. And look at what happened. Eichel was with the Kachucks, and it wasn't working last night. As soon as they broke that line up, it's the puck's in the net, and Matthews was a big part of it. Being behind the net, getting the turnover, bringing the puck out front. I called it shoveling the puck to Tkachuk. You might say the puck just went off his stick.
Yeah,
over to
Tkachuk. I think he was trying to jam at the post, and he lost it. But whatever.
When I say shoveling, that's kind of what I mean.
right.
Somebody kind of tried to take me to task of it. I didn't say he made a phenomenal pass. I said he shoveled it over there.
Right.
But still, he got the puck out there. Bringing it out and even getting the assist on the second goal too by Sanderson. He was trying to pass the puck, and it was Parayko gets in the way of it, and then it goes right to Sanderson. But still, he's active around the net that way. So I don't disagree at all. I thought the other one that really opened my eyes in this tournament, especially in the USA-Canada game, the first game, when there was just no ice whatsoever, but I thought he shined, was Dylan Larkin. It just seemed like every game he was there for them. And they actually, when Tkachuk went out and couldn't really play anymore, they actually put Dylan Larkin out there with Matthews and Brady Tkachuk. And I knew Dylan Larkin was a good player. Don't get me wrong, but just the way he excelled and just watching him play in all ends of the ice and being their best player, I thought, in USA-Canada game number 1. He shined in that game along with Gensel, and probably they don't win without him there. So I was very impressed with him in that tournament.
Paul, before we both get clobbered on social media, you've mentioned twice here that Matthews broke up a 2-on-1 to Gensel, who's his teammate. So I don't know who you're thinking of there on those plays, but I know it can be. I think you've said that. Do you have a different guy?
I have it in my notes. He got back and got his stick on it.
No, I know, but Gensel's on Team USA with Matthews, so he couldn't have broken up a 2-on-1 that Gensel was trying to execute. That's all. You said it the first time, and I thought that doesn't sound right, and then you said it again. I'm like, all right, I got to step in here. This is like Binnington and Billington from the other day. I'm sorry. It was somebody else. Regardless, we're fine, Paul. I just wanted to make sure we had it right.
Again, I'm glad you did. I'm sorry, it was Marchand.
Oh, okay, he's Canadian. All right,
I went back to my notes here. It's Marchand. Maybe I should have consulted my notes before we spoke.
Right. So, Paul, in the end, I don't know how you feel about this. I don't get too worked up about the TV ratings. I hope a lot of people watched. I'm sure they did. And anything that's good for the game is great. But I'm not that worried about the business of the league necessarily. I love that the coaches on both of these teams talked about the impact a game like this, seeing the best players in the world playing one another this entire tournament, the impact it can have on kids watching, seeing their parents invested in it and caring about it. I just think a lot of fuses could have been lit over the last 10 days or so.
Yeah, it was just, J.J. Watt's going crazy over this. The way he tweeted about it and everything, and it just has helped. And I talked to Lindy Ruff. You'll hear it on the pregame tomorrow. As a coach, you're holding your breath He first of all talked about the hockey and how great it was and why it was great and everything, but he admitted when I brought it up, because there is an you don't want your guys hurt. You don't,
right.
Especially, he says there's probably 7 or 8 teams now that are holding their breath with guys coming back with injuries and stuff. But he did admit, he goes, you know what though? He goes, I think it's the price you pay to. He goes, I still think you need to have these tournaments and to sell hockey and to show hockey that way. He goes, I really, really do. That you have to do that. So, it's coaches and owners and GMs are like, do we really want to do this? Look at Vegas. They're not going to have Theodore probably for the rest of the year. How long is Ottawa going to be without, Florida going to be without Matthew Tkachuk? Who knows?
I think you're right to mention Ottawa, too. I mean, Brady Tkachuk played the whole game last night, but he was nursing something coming in, I think. So
Trocheck may have a broken finger or
right.
And, he had a puck that he turned the puck over and it wound up in a goal. Then you see the replay. Well, he turned the puck over because his hand got slashed. And then he left the game. He did wind up coming back. But, how much is that? Maybe he can play with it, but how much is that going to affect him in the New York Rangers?
Right. How about Slavin, by the way, in this tournament, Paul? That's a player we haven't mentioned yet, and I'm just so impressed. The shot block in the slot that he had last night, I think that was in the second period, if I remember correctly. Did you notice, he lifted his legs off the ice like a goalie who sprawled, realizing the shot's about to go over him and just takes a shot lifted. Oh, I hope I get it. I was just I don't know if that was accidental, just physics or if he intended to do that, but man, what a shutdown player.
Look at what he did, and I'm looking at it now because I actually put it in my articles. I talked about Slavin. Crosby looked like he had a tap in for a goal.
Right.
It was a wide open net. Slavin turns around, got his stick there, and made the save. And it was just like nothing. It wasn't like he had to dive in there or whatever. He just calmly turned and put his stick there and stopped the puck from going in the wide open net. And that's kind of business as usual. And I don't say this lightly. He didn't have any points in the tournament, but had Team USA won that, I would have made a case for him to be Team USA's MVP, because without him, I don't think they're where they were. Every single game he played like that. And he was on the ice for quite a few Team USA goals. As I said, he didn't have any points, but the way he played, I'm trying to remember, probably you have to go back to Lidstrom to see a defenseman that played like that in this type of a tournament and just kept killing plays and plays and getting the puck up ice and killing plays. And it just dominated that way. Hellebuck probably would have been Team USA's MVP, or the MVP of the tournament had Team USA won, and I can't really argue with that. Not many people are going to vote for Slavin, but I could have certainly made a case for him, and you can see why they rave about him in Carolina. Maybe he doesn't get the press he should because he plays in Carolina, but I know Mike Maniscalco used to work with us at WGR, and he's now their play-by-play guy, and Mike has raved about him for I don't know how long. When Buffalo's playing Carolina, we've talked about the two teams, and he's always talking about Slavin. And then you watch the game, and it's like, he always has a good game against the Sabres. I think he very rarely has poor games against anybody, and he really, really was a force for them.
Just a tremendous example of a guy who can be a shut-down defender without being like a punishing physical body checker. There's just all kinds of ways to get it done. And you said the correct phrase there: kills plays. That's it. He just kills plays dead. And it's not flashy, like big hits can be. I'm not saying he isn't physical, but he's not. It's not his number one trait by a long shot. To me, he's just positionally very smart.
And he knows where to be in the passing lane, and he knows where to be in the shooting lane, and is always there.
So, Paul, 5:30 tomorrow, the Rangers. You've been around the Sabres this week as they've been ramping up. But I should ask this very directly. Is everybody back, and will everyone play? Like Dahlin, Thompson, Luukkonen?
Ruff said everybody is available except, well, Kozak isn't up anymore. He did play in the last game for the Sabres, which would have been Nashville, so I'll bring him up. He went back down and has since gotten a lower body injury and is week to week down in Rochester. So if you're wondering where he went, he was sent down, played a little bit with Rochester, and wound up with this injury that is going to keep him out a while. But other than that, Greenway, the guys who all played in the tournament, they're all ready to go. And Lindy said everybody is available for tomorrow.
Forgive me, I've not had a chance to look. With Greenway back, is there a chance that they put the McLeod, Greenway, Zucker line back together, or is Zucker got to stay up on a different line because, they need his offense up there?
Well, it's interesting to see, how they'll put this back together. I mean, in practice, and Greenway they've basically all been at practice. Greenway has been with Cousins and Quinn. So that puts McLeod with Tuck and Zucker. So that's what we're looking at right now. Krebs is centering Benson and Mallenstein. That's I think, the way we'll see it tomorrow. Greenway playing with Cousins and Quinn. I think Greenway is a good player to cause turnovers, and maybe it'll help those two maybe rediscover things. Because it's not necessarily that Greenway will score himself, but he's good for his line mates with the turnovers. He gets in there and is great on the forecheck. So that's what they're going to try right now. So it's, instead of Greenway with McLeod and Zucker, it's going to be Tuck.
And I imagine Thompson then still on a wing with Kulik and Peterka.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Sure is. And then Lafferty appears to be the odd man out. As I said, Mallenstein had been suffering from back spasms, but he's back, and he took the first shift with Krebs and Benson, and then Lafferty was later. Usually that means that the guy who takes the second one is the one that's sitting out. So we'll see how that goes. And just, Byram is still with Dahlin, but interestingly enough, now Dahlin is on the right side. I didn't think Byram performed all that poorly on the right side, but for whatever reason, they have flipped that.
All right, and they have a full stable of healthy defensemen too, right?
Yep, all 8 are out there. Everybody. They will not have an injury list unless somebody gets sick or somebody trips coming into the arena. They will not have an injury list tomorrow when the game starts.
Not that I'm in a hurry to do anything about this, but Rochester, of course, has been continuing to play. You mentioned Kozak going down after that Nashville game before this break for the Four Nations Faceoff. Levi's been on a bit of a roll, right? Shutout last time out, I'm pretty sure.
He's been on a roll the whole time down there. Very deserving of being on the All-Star team. And, you look at this Rochester team, I don't know when the last time you could say that they're the best team in the American Hockey League by 1 point over Laval and Hershey. And it's been a long time. I mean, they have a 31-14-3 record. And you also look at it, they're also second in the league in goal scoring. Calgary is 172 and they have 171. So they can put the puck in the net, but Levi definitely has put up great numbers down there, a very deserving AHL All-Star. And you just wonder, though, you look at Isak Roseanne, he's 5th in the league in scoring with 45 points, and he's only 1 point out of 2nd in the league in scoring. And he's 2nd in the league in goals with 25. But think of the games he's played in Buffalo. I mean, he's around, I'm just going by memory, 7 or 8 NHL games, and he doesn't even get scoring chances when he's here. And he did play on a better line. He did play with Kulik and Peterka last time he was here until they wound up with an injury and he had to sit, so probably for a little over half the game. And again, you didn't see any scoring chances really, or right now those 25 goals in 46 games are not translating to the NHL yet. He's still young, but he's been developed correctly. He's been in the American Hockey League for a while, so we'll have to see. You could say the same thing about Levi. Is the AHL going to translate into the NHL eventually? We don't know. we'll have to wait and see.
Paul, I just want to let you know that as a unrestricted free agent, I don't think my choice would be to sign with the Yankees, despite their relaxing the facial hair grooming policies that are so archaic. High time that they finally did it, but I think I would. There's some better landing spots for me.
No, I think it'll be good for you, but honestly, I don't think you'd qualify yet. It has to be, a neatly trimmed type of a beard.
Oh, you haven't seen me, Paul. I got all. You got to watch the Twitch or the YouTube. I got all tightened up.
Oh, so you have a different look now.
Oh yeah. I mean, the beard is still, but it's I got clipped. Yeah.
Okay. Well, good.
My barber Oral Roberts did a great job.
I'll look forward to seeing you in the Yankees lineup this year.
All right, Paul. Thanks a lot for this busy week. We've called on you a lot. We appreciate it. And back to it for the Sabres tomorrow, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
Marty.
Yeah, right. Marty Biron coming up next. There's Paul teasing the next segment for us. Paul's appearance with us here on WGR brought to you by Equitable Advisors. Planning for your future is about more than just money. Let Equitable be your guide. And by Raylax Honda. Raylax, we got this. More hockey on the way. Yes, like Paul said, Marty Biron, former Sabre goaltender, after this on WGR.
Never miss a second.
Canada takes the Four Nations final over the United States thanks to an overtime winner from Connor McDavid. The next big international play will come in 2026 for the Winter Olympics in Milan. With that, though, in the rearview mirror, the NHL is back in full force this weekend. Tomorrow, 14 games in action starting at 12:30. The Sabres will be hosting the Rangers at 5:30. But before that, former Sabres prospect Matthew Savoie will make his debut with Edmonton against Philadelphia, and that game will get going at 1 o'clock. We'll get more on the Sabres and the Four Nations final. Marty Biron joins the show next. Over in the NFL, the Jaguars do have their GM. They have announced it is Rams Director of Scouting Strategy, James Gladstone. Former Chargers head coach Brandon Staley is expected to now be the Saints' new defensive coordinator, and some cap moves starting to be made around the league, namely Bengals releasing defensive tackle Sheldon Rankins, which will free up $9.6 million on the cap. And then in college hoops, Niagara Purple Eagles are in the state's capital. Take on Siena. Tip-off at 7. You can listen to that game right here on WGR. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Sean McDonough with the call of the game-winning goal, the Four Nations Faceoff last night. All right, you got to check these refs. Are they affiliated with the Chiefs? I think the fix was in. McDavid gets the winner. Go figure. Canada. They get everything. Joining us now on the Wester Hotline. I'm just kidding around because Marty Biron's joining us on the Wester Hotline here. Just teasing. Marty, how are you? Thanks for hopping in here on short notice for me.
Well, you're teasing, but I think Canada should have been called for too many men on the ice in overtime. They didn't have 6. They didn't have 7. I think they had 8 at one point. And I know it's by the benches and that happens, but Braden Point was in on the forecheck, and they had too many. They let it go, and I can appreciate it. But if you have to think of, maybe that would have been the one power play the U.S. needed to win it.
That's fair. I forgot all about that. But, yeah, that was pretty egregious, I would say. Well, Marty, I know how much you obviously love the game, and I know what it means to your family. It has to feel good when the eyes of the sports world sort of descend on hockey in this way like they have over over almost the last 2 weeks here.
Yeah, you got to think that everything fell just perfect for the NHL and the NHLPA over the last 2 weeks because the Super Bowl happens, and then you're like, what, the NHL is going to go dark for 2 weeks? Like, no game? No. You have the world right there for you. But I felt like they stepped into the big stage, and maybe they got lucky, right? They got lucky with, the first game, Canada-Sweden. Like, if Canada doesn't allow Sweden to come back Wednesday 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago, and all of a sudden, like, it's not an overtime game and it's not the same buzz, does it carry over? Does it continue on Saturday night with the 3 fights in 9 seconds and everything? And if it's Canada-Sweden or Canada-Finland or U.S.-Finland or U.S.-Sweden, is it the same thing in the final? I will never know. All I know is that it was spectacular. It was fun. It was intense. It was emotional. It was physical. It was everything that they wanted to be and more. And the players really got to be congratulated for that because I felt like they put it all on the line.
I think that's absolutely right. I mean, the margins are so slim, right? I mean, he could have had a very different result if a couple of things go a different way, and that's right. I mean, even just competitively, that Sweden game, I remember watching it, thinking like, I'm not rooting for anyone really here. I just want to see a good show. And when Canada's up, I'm like, I really need a Sweden goal. I want this to be back and forth. And sure enough, there it was. And then there was another, and ultimately overtime. So. Yeah, absolutely
and
right.
The Sweden coach didn't help because I got angry for his lack of usage of Rasmus Dahlin right in game 1. Like he didn't play on the power play late in the game at 3-3 tie. He didn't play in overtime. So it got me fired up. So maybe I was even more emotional and intense with the whole thing because of the Sweden coach. And I think he didn't really get his team going the right way.
one of the main reasons I thought to reach out to you today, I mean, obviously the spectacle that we all just watched was tremendous. But Jordan Binnington, Marty, and just you heard Sean McDonough say it there. He did it again at TD Bank North Garden. I feel like mostly I'm in the group that just wants to kick him in the rear end all the time. A lot of it is because of how he handles himself on the ice during games. I just think he's kind of a loose nut. And I don't know how you handle your son Jacob, who's playing college hockey now. When Owen was playing, I hated anytime. I understood it can happen, but anytime he lost his temper, that was the thing I maybe most vocally criticized him about, or tried to guide him, like, dude, get out of there. All your teammates are going to come rally if you take a swing at somebody or cross-check somebody, and you're going to get penalties, and it's bad. Just skate away. But Binnington is like a wingnut with that stuff. It's like he goes looking for it. So he's been one of my least favorite guys, but man, what a show he put on, especially in overtime last night.
So it's funny you say that, because that is not anything about hockey or the positioning. It's more about how do you handle yourself as a person, right? Like, I remember my dad never said much about my game. You know, he was a coach and everything, but he let me do my own thing, and he let the goalie coach do their own thing. But I remember one day I was with the Flyers, and we played in New Jersey, and I had a bad game, and I got a voicemail after the game, and I called him. I said, what's going on? He goes, would you get up after you give up a goal? Don't just sit there. Get up and get ready for the next shot. And I'm like, oh, like, it wasn't about, hey, you know, your angles and your stick or whatever. And I feel like you were the same way with Owen. And I feel like even though I played the game, like, I don't want to so much tell my son, like, hey, you know what, your glove in or whatever. It's more about, you know,
demeanor,
composure.
Yeah, right.
Don't lose your cool here. Like, the game is on the line. Like, it's almost like more of a human aspect of it. And when we watch Jordan Binnington, that's why I think it drives so many people crazy. Because even though you've never played the game or you don't know hockey that much, you watch him and you're like, what's wrong with him? Why is he going crazy? Why does he push this guy? Why is he so I've been pretty loud about the Adin Hill should have been their starter. And Canada could have won with Adin Hill. Now, I think John Cooper had a bit of a wager on, I want the guy that can make that big save in overtime if we get there in the final game. And who's that guy? Binnington, Hill, or Montembeault? And he picked Binnington. And he won the gamble that he took by having Binnington there. But Binnington in Sweden game wasn't that great. He gave up a couple of shaky goals to the U.S. Saturday night. Wasn't good in the third period against Finland. So it's like, when was he good? Overtime against Sweden, overtime against USA, and you win a gold medal. So it wasn't the best of Binnington, but that's who he is, and he's never going to change.
Yeah, I did you notice last night after all the the hoopla and the helmets and the gloves and everything goes flying and they're sort of gathering on the ice, ESPN cut away to a shot of Binnington and Cooper embracing, and Cooper and they stayed on it for a long time, and Cooper was talking the whole time to him in his ear, and I just thought, wow, what a moment.
Yeah, but think of John Cooper and him coaching Tampa, winning back-to-back Stanley Cups, and then going to a third straight Cups and losing in that one. But, like, I think Coop is also that guy, very arrogant, confident, and he likes those type of guys. He likes Nikita Kucherov. He doesn't like him. He loves him. Mm-hmm. And Kucherov is, sometimes you watch him and you're like, man, like, he doesn't care at all about this game. The effort level is a zero right now. And then some nights he's the best player in the world. And I think John Cooper loves that. And John Cooper loves to put it all on the line with Jordan Binnington. It's almost like he wanted that scenario so we can say how smart and how good John Cooper is. And I know Coop, and he's a great guy, but I think he almost was hoping for that scenario so that we can give him all the credit and all the accolades.
Former NHL goaltender, longtime Sabre, and current broadcaster here on TV for the games, and of course on the radio here with Sabres Live, noon to 1. Marty, I ran away from it so quickly. So you're on the Flyers. That's like near the. I mean, you'd played how many games by then? That's when your dad is calling you to complain about your posture or your demeanor. Like, that's incredible to me. I love that.
Yeah, I remember I was on the bus, and we used to travel by bus between New Jersey and Philadelphia. It was an hour and a half, right? There was like no need to take the plane and whatever. Like, you go from Philly to Newark, and I remember him calling me, and that was before texting and all of that. So I had to call him on the phone, and he never said too many things to me about the game, but that was one that I recall. I remember my agent back in juniors. I was struggling my second year at the start of the year. I just got drafted in the first round. And again, like, it was more about the mental approach to the game. He's like, Marty, why don't you play each period in 5-minute segments? Because right now, like, you give up a goal in the first minute, and it's like you're thinking, oh, boy, the next 59 minutes are going to be tough. He's like, how about you only focus about the next 4 minutes? And then after that, you're going to get the next 5. And then and my dad would remind me of that often. Hey, how was your 5-minute segments, last game? And that was just a mental reminder. And I thought that was, that's why maybe family members, they understand you more. They know you better. So sometimes they can just make sure they push the right buttons. But that was mostly our conversation. We rarely talked about the games and all of that, but he would always have these quiet reminders until one time where he was a little bit louder, like, get off your knees and get ready for the next one.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think that's good practice for any hockey parents out there. At least as if you go up the levels and keep climbing, like, let the David Leggios and the goalie coaches of the world handle the RVHs and all that stuff. And just like I'm out of the way because I don't know what the hell's going on anymore. Marty,
well, it's kind of funny because you say that, and I had a conversation with Steve Steos. He's the GM in Ottawa now, but he was the GM with the Hamilton Bulldogs of the OHL years ago, and his son was about 17. And I said, hey, are you still going on the ice with your son and doing some stuff and, some skills? He goes, no. He goes, I stopped doing that when he was about 14 and 15. He goes, he doesn't want to hear me tell him, hold your stick that way, shoot, skate, do this. And then it's like, do your homework, clean your room. He's like, no. He goes, that's too much. He goes, I'm a dad at the rink. I'm a dad at home. I'm not his coach anymore. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Marty Biron on the Western Hotline with us for a couple of more minutes here. So pretty stark. In overtime, we've got Matthews with the puck on his stick in the slot, in pretty tight. Easy to say, get it over the glove. I think from that angle, maybe over the glove means over the net. He was in so tight there. So tough spot, but still great save, Binnington, and then the big save on Tkachuk as well. At the edge of the side of the net there, and then McDavid is all alone in the slot, farther out, a little easier to pick your spot there. And Hellebuyck couldn't get out far enough to take the angle away. But pretty stark. Like the best guy on Team USA has the game on his stick. The best guy on Team Canada has the game on his stick, and the guy on Team Canada doesn't miss.
Yeah, and when Matthews missed, when Binnington made the save, I thought, how does Matthews not elevate the puck? Like, you cannot hit the goalie in the pad there. Like, you got to elevate, and then you see the replay, and you think, wow, he actually elevated the puck. It was the blocker of Binnington that made the save. The save on Tkachuk was a good desperation save by Binnington, but it was a bad angle, and I don't know if it was going in or not, but it's more spectacular.
Yeah.
Now, I feel bad for Austin Matthews because I thought he had a fantastic game.
Me too.
He had a great tournament. Despite like the low production, he was physical. He was great defensively. He was usually the one that Mike Sullivan would deploy in tough situations, and he did a good job all game against Connor McDavid. I don't blame him for the last goal. Like, everybody said, McDavid was left alone by Matthews. I look at Adam Fox, and I'm like, where was Fox? When Marner has the puck in the corner, Fox was nowhere near. So Matthews is like, well, I got to go. And when he goes, Fox is like, I'm going too. And Adam Fox looked really bad in the tournament, I thought. So I don't blame Matthews. He tried to make a play. It just happened that when you make a mistake at that level, it's some of the best players in the world that end up with the chance.
I would have to admit, and I said this to Paul a little while ago, Marty, that I did not think of Matthews as a 200-foot player before this tournament. And I don't know if he changed his game or if I just haven't been watching closely enough when I watch him play with Toronto. I mean, I watched him play probably hundreds of times already in his career. And I just thought his 200-foot game was a revelation in this tournament.
And that's why I was hoping Tage Thompson was going to get a chance to go to the tournament because, you're put in different situations. Like Tage with the Sabres, he's got to score. He's got to produce offensively. Austin Matthews with Toronto, he's got to score. He's got to produce offensively. But in those type of tournaments, you're put in different situations. Like Patrice Bergeron was made for those events because he played the same way on Team Canada that he did in Boston, and then everybody recognized, wow, look at how great he can be, not just at the NHL level, but at the Olympic level as a defensive forward. But maybe Tage would have had that responsibility, and I wish I would have had a chance to see Tage in that situation. I bet you Tage goes next year to the Olympics. Like, Kreider, no. Vincent Trocheck, no. Like, there was a lot of no's on Team USA moving forward. I think that they'll make different selections.
Yeah, I hope that that's right because I would love to see Thompson get the opportunity here to go represent the country. And the Olympics is really it's a bigger stage than even this. I mean, this was tremendous, but hopefully that comes to fruition. What are your thoughts as the Sabres are a couple of weeks away from the trade deadline and they're ramping their season back up here? Just real quick before we part ways, what do you think happens here? Zucker and Greenway, are they easy trades or easy contract extension candidates in your mind?
Well, I mean, I'd like to have both of them, especially Zucker. I think he's been great, right? And Jordan Greenway, the injuries are worrying me. He seems to have missed a lot of games, right? But when he's on the ice, he's definitely a factor. So I think you got to evaluate all of that. But, I mean, Lindy Ruff laid out the plan. You need to play 700, point percentage for the next 25 games, and then you have 3 left to try to get to 90 points. There's only 2 teams in the NHL that are playing above 700 point percentage right now. So is it a big hill to climb? Absolutely. So, yeah, maybe if you have an opportunity to make some moves to say we're going to be better next year. I know people want to say, hey, next year has always been the broken record the last little bit here, but you still have to get better. So maybe you can get better, looking at a Greenway trade at the deadline, a Zucker trade at the deadline. There's still a lot of chatter around Bo Byram and Owen Power and Dylan Cousins. So maybe there's hockey trades to be made and rental trades to be made. I think Kevin Adams has got going to have a busy 2.5 weeks here before March 7th.
Marty, thank you so much for answering the bat signal on such short notice. We enjoyed the visit very much. Very timely with all the events of the last few weeks here, and especially this tournament. Just fantastic. So thanks for this. Best to the family, and I hope to run into you soon, man.
Same to you. Thanks for having me, Bulldog. And yes, I'll show up to the porch beers in the spring when it's nicer.
That's a date. 100%. I will take you up on that for sure. Love to have you over.
Come up to the attic and see all them guitars.
There it is. Yes, I will make that happen, dude. You just let me know when you want to do it. Thanks, Marty.
Sounds good.
That is Marty Biron on the Western Hotline going over the Four Nations face-off and also taking a brief look at the Sabres' way forward here. All right, we are going to shift gears and talk some football. It's been an entire hockey-centric show here for the first 2 hours. We'll change that up. Mike Renner, CBS Sports, NFL, and draft analyst, will join us after the top of the hour break here. So we'll get into some of that with him as we continue. Mike is on vacation along with Zach Jones. I'm the Bulldog, and this is WGR. And don't even talk to me about weed.
On WGR Sports Radio 550.
I guess it didn't matter that Thursday's game was on ABC I got that wrong. Saturday's game was on ABC and last night's game was on ESPN. That is a massive number for hockey to pull. 9.3 million people. Wow, tremendous. What a week and a half it's been for the NHL and its star players and Team Canada and Team USA. Nothing against Team Finland and Team Sweden. Anyway, we're shifting gears, focusing on the NFL offseason here and the Bills' way forward, free agency, the draft in particular. And to help us do that, joining us right now on the West Her Hotline is Mike Renner from CBS Sports, one of their NFL and draft analysts. Mike, nice to talk to you again. How are things going?
Going great. Thanks so much for having me on.
Wonderful. Did you watch hockey last night?
I did not. I'm too deep in the football game. I was watching prospects last night.
I totally understand. So this draft, like kind of an overall here, and then we can get maybe into some more specifics and Bill's needs and ideas for them. But I get the sense that where the Bills are in this draft, with 2 second-round picks and the 30th pick, while you, of course, would like to be up higher, maybe they're in kind of a sweet plateau area in this draft. What do you think?
I think there is a lot of talent going into day 2, and especially at, valuable positions. I think this year, uniquely, there's a lot of offensive tackles that are going to come off the board, or offensive linemen that are going to come off the board in the second round, like tackles that could be guard converts. And there's a lot of defensive ends as well that, I think at least a third of the first round is going to end up being defensive ends. So, there's a lot of talent rushing the passer in this draft class, defensive tackle talent as well. So the trenches, I think, into day 2, there's definitely a lot of guys, and I do think this class, it may not have top-heavy, it may not have elite superstars after, a couple guys, but there definitely is depth.
Yeah, and that's music to a lot of Bills fans' ears here because, Mike, obviously we all watched the Super Bowl, we all watched the AFC Championship game and saw the disparity between what the Bills were or really were not able to do to slow down the Chiefs for yet another playoff loss at the hands of Mahomes and Reed, and then you see the Eagles just dismantle all of that. They couldn't get their quick game going. Obviously, the pass rush had a big part in that. So a lot of fans here in Buffalo, me included, because I mostly go, well, Josh Allen's got the ball in his hands with 2 minutes to go. I like my chances, and it sort of lets the defense off the hook. Not that I expect the Bills to be able to do what the Eagles have done year over year here in one off season, but hearing that it's rich on the defensive line is a very, very good thing, I think, for this Bills team. Do you agree?
Oh, 100%. Now, unfortunately, I think the other 2 positions that are probably the best positions in the draft, running back and tight end, are pretty much off limits for the Bills. So they're not going to be taking advantage of either of those. But definitely defensive line, I wouldn't, after how the postseason went, after what we saw with the Eagles, would not surprise me if those, first, second rounders could all be defensive linemen.
And what kind of players do you think the Bills should be looking for? Obviously, edge guys are edge guys, right? Guys that can get around the edge and get to the quarterback in a hurry. Defensive tackle-wise, the Bills have kind of maybe set. Ed Oliver certainly is their number one as far as a penetrating up the field guy. They drafted Dwayne Carter last year in the 3rd round, and he's a similar athletic profile. What I think maybe they should be looking for, tell me if you agree or disagree, is the big guy to either replace or certainly supplement at the very least Daquan Jones.
Yeah, I do think that you watch them play run defense. It's a very uphill-based scheme. They like to get in the backfield. They're not sitting on blocks, but it's also because they don't really have the sort of personnel to do so. So I do think that just getting some longer, bigger 3-4 defensive end types that can also play the nose tackle. And this class is chock full of them. This class is the one to, if you want to draft a guy just for his ability in run defense, there's a bunch of guys, especially that are going to be coming off the board in the 2nd and 3rd round. So if that's what they want to address, and I do think it is, right? I do think that you need some guys that are just at least reliable in that regard. then at the end of the day, I think that's where you're going to end up targeting.
Yeah, among the group that could be available at 30 or even into the second round, Kenneth Grant is a name from Michigan, sort of outshined by his more decorated teammate Mason Graham, different type of player. Grant is a guy that certainly comes to mind. Thoughts on him and maybe some other guys if you're that far into your study on these guys?
Yeah, I think that's like a pipe dream for 30. I think he'll unfortunately be off the board before that, but that's like the type of guy. But into the second round, you have guys like Alfred Collins out of Texas. Into the third round, you got guys like Jamari Caldwell out of Oregon that are all kind of fitting that mold, among other names. There's just a lot of guys in this defensive tackle class specifically that can really get after the run. Tyleik Williams from Ohio State, I think, fits that bill in the second round as well. So it's a good class if you need run defenders. There's just a lot of them.
Another need the Bills, I think, will have here with all this focus on the defensive line, certainly, and it's not surprising, but number 2 corner across from Christian Benford. I mean, we're sort of wondering when he's going to get his contract extension this offseason or if he will get one this offseason, because he certainly has earned it as the player he's become here after being a 6th-round pick 3 years ago, Mike. But opposite him, Rasul Douglas is getting older, and I thought he was kind of a weak link this past season anyway after arriving here midseason last year and really smashing, and he's a free agent. And so I wonder, certainly you can go shopping for maybe that caliber of replacement in free agency. I saw Dane Jackson, a former Bill who just spent 1 year in Carolina, got released already today, and maybe that's an idea. But I'm wondering about the draft and a corner with maybe one of those second-round picks, if not their first-round pick.
Yeah, I think second round in this corner class makes more sense. After kind of the real top group, which is Will Johnson from Michigan, Travis Hunter from Colorado, and then Jahdae Barron from Texas. That's like your 3 guys that I'd really only feel comfortable drafting in the first round. Everyone else either has like a major injury like Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame or Savone Revel from ECU, or their tape's just such that it's good tape. They don't have great traits. Guys like Trey Amos fit that bill. Guys like Azaria Thomas from Florida State fit that bill where like they just aren't going to be low 4.4, high 4.3 guys that you usually want to draft in the first round, but they still look like they're good football players. So I think all those guys will be day 2 guys. I think that's where, if you're going to address corner, just in this class in particular, it makes more sense in the second round.
I wonder, the Bills are still feeling burned by missing on Kyer Elam, who was always a curious pick a few years ago to a lot of us here, Mike, because the Bills have mostly played zone with Sean McDermott here as their coach, and Elam came out of Florida, and the book on him was that he was a much better man player and just has not been able to catch up to really be a scheme fit here. And now we're into a point where I think off of this AFC title game loss that I mentioned and seeing what the Eagles did to Kansas City, and McDermott's even acting in accord with this with some of his offseason coaching staff hires. There's an assistant from New England whose name is escaping me right this moment, who's more of a man cover type guy. And I wonder if the Bills are going to be trying to find someone opposite Benford who can play a little bit more man than they are used to playing in Buffalo.
That'd be interesting because, obviously, I 100% agree on that Elam assessment. I could not believe he went to the Bills. I remember saying, I think pre-draft, I was like, well, he's not a good fit for the Bills. McDuffie's a good fit for the Bills. So, at that point in the draft, that was kind of where they were both slotted to go. And then when they picked him, I was like, well, we'll see. Maybe they'll change their stripes there. And obviously, we all know how that's unfortunately worked out. But I think in this draft, if you are going to go more man coverage, the guy I'd point to as a good second rounder is Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame. That's all he did at Notre Dame. That's the whole book on him is that he's a man corner who's like a little undersized and has a hip injury that, hip injury for cornerbacks is a pretty big deal. Yeah. So that's the worry why he's probably not going to go in the first round. But I remember that guy as a true freshman at Notre Dame was their best corner already. I love prospects that the moment they step on collegiate campuses, they're already, high-end football players. Those are the guys I like to ultimately end up be high in the NFL draft because it speaks to just innate skill. So I think if you're going more man, that's the guy I'd point to as being a high-end man corner that could still be available in the second round.
Talking with Mike Renner, CBS Sports NFL and draft analyst here on WGR on the Western Hotline. Mike, we're 10, 15 minutes into this, and maybe from your experience being on the station over the last few draft cycles, you might be stunned that I haven't asked you about wide receivers yet. It's been we've been like a factory of wide receiver content here in the off seasons for maybe this is the third year running now. Get Josh Allen premium weapons. 3 years ago, I was go replace Stephon Diggs. Like, get a guy that can be in line to replace Stephon Diggs, and they end up not really drafting that receiver until they had already traded away Stephon Diggs. Not that Keon Coleman is exactly a Stephon Diggs replacement, but you get the idea. How do you feel about this receiver class?
I just think it's thin, unfortunately. The more I watch kind of the second tier of wide receivers, the more I'm just like, the kind of just guys. I'd be very hard-pressed to see someone breaking out as like a day 2 1,000-yard receiver the way we saw like Ladd McConkey last year. It's thin. You'll probably see 3 come off the board only in the first round, being Ted McMillan from Arizona, Luther Burden from Missouri, and then Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State. After those 3, Matthew Golden might sneak in, the wide receiver out of Texas, but there's just not guys that look like number 1 wide receivers the way we saw last year. Every other guy after that has some big flaw. They're either like don't have speed or they have size, or they don't have size but they have speed. Like there's just not a true guy I could see being a number 1 wide receiver, even if he's a project after that. So unfortunately, by the time the Bills are on the clock, the wide receiver class may be over in terms of just like real guys who could even play a role for the Bills with what they have in place already.
One guy who you comes to mind when you mention that they're lacking some trait, and in this case it would be size, is Tez Johnson from Oregon, who kind of caught my attention at the Senior Bowl, both on the field and also just talking about his process. But he's 155 pounds. I mean, I see him listed at CBS at 165, and maybe that's generous. I want to ask you like a philosophical question about this, because we heard some of the same thing, not that these guys are the same level of prospect, but Xavier Worthy was a big draft crush for me last year. Throughout this thing, was the guy I really wanted the Bills to draft, so you can imagine how I reacted when they traded the pick to Kansas City and they picked him. And Johnson, but the knock on Worthy was he's small, he's not going to get off the line of scrimmage, that kind of thing. I wonder if in the NFL, as we're moving forward, whether or not it's that big a deal to be slight of build anymore. With the way the rules are put together, I just wonder. I mean, I know every guy's different, but Johnson is a guy that I'm curious about whether I can maybe get a guy that's getting dinged for something that isn't as important as it was even 5 or 10 years ago.
I do think where it does limit you to have a guy like that is the run game. If he's on the football field, he can't do the same things in the run game that, say, Keon Coleman can do, right? You're not going to ask him to block a linebacker on a crack block. He gets, that's how Tank Dell, who was almost the same size as well, that's how he got hurt 2 years ago. So broke his leg blocking in the running game. So that's where it limits you. But I tend to agree. You worry about small guys that aren't elusive, that guys can get their hands on, then all of a sudden they're getting beat up. But Tez Johnson, you can't touch that guy. I mean, I saw at Senior Bowl, guys weren't even in press coverage getting their hands on him. So when that's the case, I don't think it's a big deal. So I think he's great. It's just how many slot receivers is the Bills going to stockpile, right? I feel like a lot of their guys, best position is the slot. They just don't have like outside wide receivers at this point. And in this class, there are some. They're not like electric outside of the guys I talked about off the top, but to me, he's very much going to be a redundant skill set if they were to draft him to like a Khalil Shakir. Like they're just similar players at this point.
Yep, that gets me off of the Tez Johnson train just about. I'll tell you, Mike. Thank you for that. You mentioned at the outset here the Bills not expected to be in the running back market or the tight end market, and I agree. But the running back class here is getting a lot of love. How many do you think will actually go in the first round? So I feel like it can cut both ways. If there's a lot of guys, you might feel like you can wait and get a guy later. So I don't know. Would you put an over/under on 2.5, more or less than that, as far as first-round running backs go?
See, I could see 2. The only thing is that Ashton Genty from Boise State's going in the first round. If I had to bet on a second one, it would be Amarion Hampton from North Carolina. It's such a good class. And all the teams drafting in the 20s at this point in time should be like your supposed sharp football teams that make smart football decisions, that realize that you can get a James Cook in the late second, right? You can get high-end impact backs without a first-round pick. So I think you'll see those teams pass. I don't think you'll see one of those teams, even if running backs back in terms of evaluation and like what Saquon did last year and Derrick Henry and its value and whatever. I still think you'll see teams objectively look at this class and say, is Amarion Hampton a full round grade better than, say, Dylan Sampson from Tennessee, who you could probably have at pick 60? I don't think he is. So I think if I had to bet, I bet it's 1. But I could see as many as 3 going in the first round because, gosh, it's just a really good running back class. There's 3 backs that are probably that good in some people's eyes.
And the quarterbacks, we know the names at the top: Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, I guess Milroe, Jackson Dart coming along. I've seen a lot of talk today and really this week about the Louisville quarterback whose name is escaping me right now, but I think he played 7 years of college football. He'll be 26 a month into next season. Is it Shaw? Is that his name I'm thinking of? What do you think of the quarterbacks overall?
Yeah, it's an interesting class because while I don't think a lot of these guys have like high-end traits outside of Cam Ward, that's why I'm high on him. I think he's QB1. But they played a ton of football. I mean, Tyler Shuck, the Louisville quarterback, is who you're getting at there, the 25-year-old. Guys played forever, just kept getting hurt. Dylan Gabriel from Oregon set the college football record with 63 starts in his career. The guy's played more football than anyone else in college football history. Shedeur started for 4 years. Cam Ward started for 5 years. Jackson Dart started for 4 years. These guys have played a ton. So I think it's this class. There may not be a lot of first-rounders. I have only 1 first-round grade. But there's a lot of guys that if you draft in the second or third, they could probably start day 1 for you because they've played that much football, and it wouldn't be that big a learning curve. Similar to there's a reason why Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix look far more ready as a rookie than Caleb Williams. When you've played as much ball as they have at different stops and in different offenses, it just helps with your adjustment period to the NFL. So I think you'll see guys who are second and third round picks become rookie starters in this year's class. Now, will they become studs? I don't think so. I think, again, really the reason why I'm saying it's such an average class is because there are just such average tools in this class in terms of just like arm talent, in terms of physical capability. But it wouldn't surprise me if you end up seeing a few of these guys become starters, at least on their rookie contracts, just because they could be like, Andy Dalton-esque, Derek Carr-esque, where they're not great, but they're serviceable because it's just these guys have been through the ringer themselves.
I feel like one of maybe the most divisive might be too strong, but there's a variety of opinions I'm already seeing early in the process here, Mike, about Jalen Milroe of Alabama. I read one piece today talking about how there's Jalen Hurts-esque traits there, including flaws in his passing game process, but maybe you can teach him. It sounds a little like a smaller version of Anthony Richardson, maybe to some people. How do you feel about the Alabama quarterback?
I am not of the camp that I would play him at quarterback, truthfully. I think he's so dynamic as an athlete that I think he's leaving money on the table by not playing a different position. Now, obviously, he's got a strong arm. He is like a tier 1 runner at the position once he gets to the NFL, and that has a lot of value. It impacts games, as you obviously know, in Buffalo, as you know, by playing the Ravens. It stinks to play a quarterback who's that dynamic as a runner. You can lose and he cannot do anything with his arm, and there's nothing you can do to stop guys like that sometimes. But he's so inaccurate. I watch his tape and I'm just like, if he did not run a 4.3, you would not even know his name. The guy wouldn't be starting college football. He's just so behind the 8 ball developmentally. And he has tiny hands, which I think still matters in terms of just your ability to be accurate. If you have really small hands that can't consistently grip the ball 8 3/4 inches, smaller than anyone else starting in the NFL right now. And he already flutters a ton of footballs. It's like, I don't think that's ever going to change unless he wants to wear gloves. So I'm not high on him. Someone will probably take him day 2, but I don't like Jalen Hurts coming out, had big hands. He was accurate.
Right.
You at least knew that. That's a good starting point for a guy who could run the way he could. I don't see the starting point for Milroe, unfortunately.
Real quick before you go, I forgot what we were talking about, corners. I wanted to mention safety because that could be, I think, a sneaky need for the Bills. I mean, they've got guys that I think they can count on to start, including Cole Bishop, who was a second-round pick last year. I was kind of disappointed he didn't get he didn't get on the field, didn't earn a spot earlier this past season, but I would think that he's penciled in at one of those spots, and Taylor Rapp is returning. But Malachi Starks, I think, is interesting, and the Giant from South Carolina, Emin Worry, is very intriguing to me. Just quick thoughts on both guys before we let you go.
Yeah, I love adding a safety to that defense, especially in this class where Starks, Emin Worry, and then I'd also throw Kevin Winston from Penn State are all guys that play the run really well from a deep alignment. Like, you see them fill from depth and get to ball carriers in a hurry, whether it's like quarterbacks pulling the ball on option runs and leaking out the back door or just running backs bouncing it out. Those guys close to ball. They're all high-end athletes that tackle well in space, which to me is just something that the Bills, they need. I watched DeMar Hamlin's tape, and it's like, nothing against him, he does not have that ability to really come downhill and be an enforcer in the running game to clean up stuff like that. And I think that would go a long way to what they want to do. They want to play too high. They want to keep those safeties back. They want to put caps on opposing offenses. But right now, I just don't think they have the guys that can play the run well enough to do so. So I've mocked them in Man Worry because of that, because I think it'd be just a nice fit with what they want, and because I just don't think they have that at that position. So Man Worry is uniquely the dude in that regard, because he's 227 pounds. He is a massive safety, and I think you'll see at the combine he's going to be pretty freakish there.
He's like maybe bigger than the Bills linebackers almost. Again,
yeah, actually, I think he is.
I mean, Bernard's pretty undersized, but still. What do you think of Cole Bishop, real quick?
I liked him coming out, and I was a little surprised he didn't play. Same camp as you.
Yeah.
But safety transition from college to the NFL, it is a position where you can't make mistakes. So a lot of times people will slow walk safeties into the league just because if you don't have the defense down pat, you're a liability back there. We saw some rookie safeties, Kalen Book, most notably in Houston. Like, he made some great plays in football. He gave up some awful big plays on that defense just because it's a tough position. So I don't think I would be writing him off anytime soon. I still think he was a guy that, a lot of things I'm saying that, coming up and filling in the run game, he was able to do at Utah in a way that Bill's safeties didn't do last year.
Mike, thanks a lot for the time. We especially appreciate you burning like a half an hour, a happy hour on a Friday with us, man. So good stuff as always, and we look forward to our next visit.
For sure. Thanks so much for having me.
That is Mike Renner, CBS Sports NFL and draft analyst here. Find him at Mike Renner. You get it? It's just his name on the Twitter/X machine. There you go. All right, let's hit up a timeout. We'll get the bottom of the hour update here, and I don't know, maybe more on Four Nations Faceoff, the way forward for the Sabres. Maybe I'll focus on that specifically as we get back going. But if you got anything on Four Nations, feel free. The door's open on football too, after our conversation with Mike, if you want to dig in on that. But been a lot of hockey, and rightly so, with the success of the Four Nations Face-Off. Those ratings numbers are preposterously large for ESPN. If you haven't heard, over 9 million people watched. I thought 4.4 million on Saturday was really big. Man, they doubled it. So hats off, NHL. Great job on that, drawing people in to that tournament. 803-0550 is the number. Mike is on vacation. I am the Bulldog, and this is WGR.
Never miss a second of the Extra Point
SubaruSubaru.com.
Great vehicles, great dealerships, and really great prices.
Where this month during the
Huge rating numbers for the Four Nations final as Canada takes down the United States in an overtime thriller. 9.3 million viewers on ESPN, making it the highest-rated non-Olympic hockey game on record. We do have to wait until 2026 for the Winter Olympics in Milan for our next taste of big international play. But with all that in the rearview mirror, the NHL back in full force starting tomorrow. 14 games on the slate. Starting at 12:30 and running all day. The Sabres will be in action when they host the Rangers tomorrow at 5:30. But before that, former Sabres prospect Matthew Savoy will make his debut with Edmonton against Philadelphia at 1. In the NFL, the Jaguars have their general manager. They have announced it. It is Rams Director of Scouting Strategy, James Gladstone. And the Bengals, they have released Defensive tackle Sheldon Rankins. Rankins started 7 games last season, but he saves the Bengals $9.6 million on the cap. And then in college hoops, Niagara Purple Eagles, they are in the state's capital. They take on Siena. Tip-off at 7. You can listen to that game right here on WGR. It's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Fears in Montreal, being the enemy there, but being here and not getting the cheers that usually get when we play here. And I mean, it was just an unbelievable experience. This whole week has just been such a memorable one, and something that I've learned so much personally, and just to be a part of this group and this team and be a part of USA Hockey has been better than I expected.
That is one of the absolute stars born during the Four Nations Faceoff. Brady Tkachuk of the Ottawa Senators. Look, hockey. He's got a big contract. He's a captain of a team. I don't know that the average hockey fan was paying that much attention to Brady Tkachuk before this tournament, and certainly the casuals had to be. I mean, just totally sucked in by the Tkachuk brothers show in this tournament Saturday night with the fights to start off the round robin game against Team Canada. I feel like Brady Tkachuk, I mean, Matthews got the cup already from last year in Florida and the finals the year before that. Like he's kind of been, the flag's planted. People know who he is. His brother, I think, did a lot to raise his profile throughout this tournament. Just excellent. I mean, he was just wrecking everyone. Shift in, shift out. Just what a physical force, and a talented player at that too. So really, really tremendous opportunity for these guys to get on the map with just sports fans, if not, again, hockey fans. The name Tkachuk and these two brothers are not strangers to casual hockey fans, but I think maybe you didn't know just what kind of force they could be. They were just tremendous. And I think with the number of people who got into this, that the Olympic Games in just around a year from now are just going to be really highly anticipated. That'll be in Italy, so the time difference is going to prove to have some challenges. It might be tough to count on the kind of numbers of people tuning in that we saw watching these games the last 2 times that Team Canada and Team USA played, but just a tremendous, tremendous show. I'm blown away by that ratings number. We had a call earlier today positing that he would predict that more people watch these games than the Stanley Cup Finals Game 7 last year. And in America, that was definitely true. I think Game 7 outpaced this game last night, even in Canada. But here in the U.S., doubled it. I mean, just blew it out of the water. Really, Saturday night was only 4.4 million. That was more than watched Game 7 between Florida and Edmonton last year, and that 9.9 or 9.3 number, 925, whatever it is exactly, Zach mentioned it. Like, it's the highest rated non-Olympic hockey game. I mean, just a tremendous, tremendous thing. And to think that this thing was ramping up, this tournament, the Four Nations Faceoff was ramping up, and there were plenty of people, prominent people, hockey fans, just sort of rolling their eyes. Oh, great. The NFL just ended. Basketball's in their all-star break, and I'm going to have this go-through-the-motions tournament going on. I never really thought quite that. I still was blown away by how intense it was. I didn't think it would be all the way there, but it was really game in, game out, shift in, shift out. The intensity was obvious. So we'll see if we get more attention than we have in past years on the Stanley Cup playoffs once they get there, because that's your next opportunity to see anything from a passion and effort and intensity standpoint that will approximate what you were watching in this tournament. I mean, to think you're going to get that night to night in the regular season, I mean, you just don't. It's not possible. But these players, to their credit, I mean, just full bore. And we'll see how much fallout there is from guys maybe not being ready to rejoin their NHL teams as soon as tomorrow. Matthew Tkachuk didn't play beyond a few shifts. He didn't play really at all beyond the first period of last night's game. His brother did the same thing on Monday. Brady, he played this entire game last night, but I don't know. I haven't seen any word about Ottawa ramping up here and what the expectation is there for him to be ready to go tomorrow or this weekend anyway for the Senators. But we know Shea Theodore, important defenseman for Vegas, got hurt in the very first game of the tournament. He's out for the rest of the regular season, and we'll see just how many other guys that came through this. I mean, Austin Matthews, what was it termed? Did he have general body soreness or something, they said, I think, that held him out of the game on Monday? I mean, the U.S. didn't need it anyway, but he was back, and really, I thought, despite what the final goal of the tournament looked like, I thought Matthews was one of the very best players on the ice, at both ends of the ice. But he seemed to be nursing something. So we'll see how ready he is. Like all these guys, these teams are in, some of them, I know Buffalo, some of these teams are in playoff races. Ottawa and Detroit, two teams that the Sabres were lumped in with at the bottom of the Atlantic Division along with Montreal. They're in playoff spots as hockey ramps back up here and gets started, which is something we here were dreaming about. But they are there. I mean, they're clinging to wild card spots. It's tight. There's a lot of teams around them in the standings. Columbus is only a point or two back. The Rangers are only a point or two back. Boston is on the outside looking in at this point, so they'll probably have something to say about it too. But man, tough racket if you're like Ottawa and Detroit are not on the playoff drought streaks that the Sabres are on, but still, they've been in years-long rebuilds here, and to varying degrees, have gotten a lot right. Ottawa, when they're healthy, they're still missing. Josh Norris is a big loss when he's not there, and he's had injury problems for a lot of his career. But imagine, like, you're a Sabres fan, and you've got Dahlin in this tournament, and you're trying to end what is currently a 13-year playoff drought. But for the sake of argument, let's say they switch places with Ottawa. So they're in the wild card spot. And this tournament comes along, and of course you want Dahlin to go, and of course Dahlin wants to go and be a part of this thing, and something happens to him. Like what happened to Theodore in the first game of the tournament, and he's out for the rest of the regular season. Just imagine how we'd be feeling here. Riding a 13-season playoff drought, and you're in a spot, this break comes up, and that happens. I mean, that would be really tough. That'd be a lot of bitterness, I'm sure. I hope that sort of problem cropping up, specifically with Vegas, but maybe other teams too. Not that I was going to have sympathy for Vegas. I mean, they just won the Cup recently, and they circumvent the cap all the time with long-term injured reserve. So cry me a river. But still, that kind of scenario is what you are potentially signing up for, losing a vital player in the midst of a playoff race. Man, that would be extremely hard on the organization and Sabres fans. Again, pie in the sky, because the Sabres are not in a playoff race. They are way on the outside looking in as they get back to it tomorrow against the Rangers. 803-0550 is the number. Mike is away this week. I am the Bulldog. Back after this. You're listening to WGR. Sorry. This is responding to one of my adoring followers on Twitter who's encouraging me to get my blood pressure checked because or windburn from the. No, dude, I don't know. I'm just red. I don't know. I don't know. Nobody else looks like this. I don't. I guess I'm red. But I've recently been to the doctor. I'm the picture of health. That's not accurate. But I'm good. I'm not. My blood pressure's fine. I don't know. I'm red. I just it's the adrenaline of doing the show. I don't know what to tell you. But thanks for watching the YouTube or on the Twitch there. However you found us, we're glad you found us. Seriously, we are really glad that we're doing this, because I know a lot of our audience in Canada has been lost to us for many years once we made an app switch a few years ago, and I've effectively locked out a lot of our audience. And this is a way for you to catch the show, YouTube, or again with the kids on the Twitch there. So glad that we're doing it, even if I do. Trust me, I don't. I mean, it might be good for ratings if I did have a heart attack on the air, but I don't think it's imminent. I'm pretty sure that I'm all set, so should be good. Hey, quick note: a lot of hockey today. If you're going to the hockey game tomorrow, 5:30 start. I plant a little seed here for you. I am once again very flattered and thrilled to be taking part in a massive Tom Petty tribute night at Ironworks, right next door to the parking garage there. And that is supposed to start at 8 p.m. So, I mean, could the timing be any better? The hockey game is 5:30, and look, don't worry, if the game goes to overtime, this is going to be like a 3-hour show. Tons of Petty material, some of the best singers and players in town taking part. My friends in the Leroy Towns Band are the core group, and there's a list of, I don't even know, 30 people who sit in, most of them extremely talented, and then there's me. But I get to play a couple of songs on the guitar, and I'm very excited about that. So stop in there. It'll be a big crowd, but hopefully there's room for you. Just make a note of it. Swing on by and see some fantastic music from my friends there, and a great Tom Petty night. Whether you're a Petty freak or not, I think you'll find something to enjoy there. So just a note for you on that. All right, we'll keep the hockey conversation going here into the next hour. Paul Hamilton's thoughts on the Four Nation Faceoff finale last night, straight ahead here on WGR.